Games are meant to be a place of wonder and excitement, a break from reality where you get away from the grind that is soul crushing life of kick you down and spit you out mentality. You just get to go out, live a story, live a life full of wonder and excitement, and just have fun. But I think the industry has been falling short of these goals and metrics recently, and I think a lot of people are pointing it out. They're tired of games that are not delivering what they're supposed to be delivering. We've noticed bugs everywhere, games that just don't work or crash constantly, and through all of this failure to deliver the product that gamers need or want, they keep asking for more and more money, ways to siphon off what you have earned to put in their coffers, viewing gamers as a means to an end instead of the people that deserve the product, or they're trying to build a product that gets our attention and pulls us in. This is a issue that's been going around and people are talking more and more about. And I kind of wanted to break it down and take a look at it because I think there's some things that we can talk about that gamers are missing in this entire equation. And I think there's definitely things that the industry as a whole is not getting right. But I don't want to just break down all these negatives. I want to try to lay out some things that I think if the industry were to pay attention to and develop in a certain way, they would give us the product we want and a way to fix the game industry as a whole so that everyone is walking away with a more fulfilled and happy position. In order to do this, I'm going to break down a couple of things. First, I want to start with the thing that gamers get wrong. And yes, gamers are part of this equation that can be a problem at times. I know, it's controversial. The first thing that I think we get wrong and we attack out of nowhere consistently for no reason is all microtransactions are trash.
Now, will people buy them? Obviously, yes. Will Bungie make lots of money? Yeah. Are we getting ripped off? You damn right.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that the company offering us ways to buy unique skins or armor and things like that isn't inherently bad, as long as it doesn't affect the gameplay. I don't want to pay extra money to have access to weapons or something that gives me an edge competitively. But if you're just going to charge me for skins and things like that, who cares? Don't buy it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect you. At the end of the day, companies do have to make money. They developed a product and they have to continue to keep people on staff to develop more products. So microtransactions aren't always bad, but they're not always good either. There is a balance that needs to be struck here. And I think that line for me in the sand is once it starts affecting gameplay.
What are called DMZ bonus effects to premium cosmetics, essentially special effects, at which point the skins are no longer cosmetic only, but rather they have tangible gameplay effects that can grant players who spend that additional money significant advantages.
Pay to unlock a certain character or a certain play style or a weapon that does more damage, that's a problem. If I'm just paying for a cool haircut, no one has to partake in that system to enjoy the product, and that's fine. If someone really loves the product and wants to give extra support, that option being available is okay because it's the individual's choice if they want to buy something that looks cool that also supports the brand or product they love. And that's not the end of the world scenario that a lot of people paint it out to be. Another thing is that there are two models to monetization when we're looking at games, and people think of some as trash and some as like the holy grail. And we have to realize that, again, these are companies with people that work for them that need paychecks. And yeah, do they make a lot of money? And maybe they could pay their creators more. That's not the root of the discussion. The root of the discussion is how do they create these things? And in order to do that, it involves money. But the two kind of understood industry standards right now for making money is the seasonal method and the game DLC method. And the two don't necessarily intersect. Now, some games have maybe used the wrong monetization method for their game. If you have a always online live service model, I expect you to have some sort of seasonal mechanic and microtransaction mechanic, because you are paying for server cost constantly, and you need to have a way to constantly have a steady inflow to pay for those servers costs, as well as to pay for development of future seasons and future iterations of the game. And that model is fine. The DLC business model is just another one, and it works way better for single player experience games, where you release a game, you charge full price for that game, and once the game is out, you use the money from that sale to fund the construction of DLC, and it leaps forward DLC to DLC until the game has gone its lifespan as far as you want to take it. There's nothing wrong with either model inherently, but if you're in a live service game, you shouldn't complain about seasonal passes and things like that, because the company is incurring cost as they continue to develop. And that is something that is standard. Every day that they host a server for you to play on in a live service game, it costs them money for that server, which means they have to have money coming in monthly to spend money monthly in order for you to continue to experience something that is always online and always available in that world for you. Another thing we have to understand, and developers probably need to listen to this too, is that listening to us is a mistake. Listening to the gamers isn't always bad, but always listening to the gamers is a problem, because we don't know what we actually want. We don't know what actually makes a good game. Games that have consistently always listened to the fan base have added so much to the game that it takes away from the main game conception, and it kind of destroys the mechanics and gameplay. We want a good experience, and we all see something a little bit differently. The problem is there's so many opinions out there. Everyone wants something slightly different. So if you listen to all of us, you're just going to have a hodgepodge mess of something that is barely held together by glue and kind of maybe sort of works.
All of this just works.
I'm not saying never listen to the gamer and the consumer, because a lot of times a majority of us have valid complaints that can help in the development of the game. But when you're talking about mechanics or I want this ability, a lot of times if you listen to all of us, you're going to add too much and you're going to break the game. This is where the game has to have some sort of backbone and say, no, that's not what's happening. I think FromSoft is an excellent example of this. They've always released games and people have complained about certain mechanics or difficulty levels, and FromSoft has said, hey, this is our game. You like it or you don't. Sorry, not sorry. That's not to say, like, when we're talking about bugs or we're talking about legitimate problems that prevent us from playing the game, that's what you listen to. But when it comes to mechanics in the game and the vision of the game, that's where I think a lot of developers kind of need to hold strong and develop a game that's enjoyable, that it fits their vision and doesn't placate to the entirety of the gaming world. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to please everyone. It's not possible. Everyone has different opinions and different likes and dislikes. You're just not going to get everyone in the industry or the market. That's just not how it's going to work. So with that in mind, make the game and stick to your guns and develop it in a way that improves gameplay without giving in to the whims of everyone who's upset in a Discord channel. I hope that's not overly harsh towards the gamers, but that's all I got for them, really. Just understanding that the industry does exist to make money, and that, you know what, we're not always right. We're just not. That's kind of the breakdown of that. But the industry itself has some issues of their own that definitely need to be looked at. It starts with the you can't please everyone. There's a way to address that, and it's to stick to one direction. It's to have a unified goal with the way you build your game. It's to understand that what you're trying to do is develop a product that makes people happy, not makes everyone happy. You can't win them all. Don't try to win them all. Build a game that's enjoyable and engaging and watch the people come back. You don't have to constantly change everything to please every smallest group within your subfraction organization of players. You just have to make a game, decide that that's the direction it goes, and stick to your guns. The constant flipping back and forth to please this group or please that group and going back and forth will start weeding off people on both sides of any argument that might arise around your game until there's barely anyone left. This one I've kind of harped on a lot, but like, you're using the wrong metrics when you build the game of what your goal is and what you want to do. And one of the biggest ones I see is the best graphics. This game is gonna look the absolute best. This game is going to blow all other games out of the water graphic wise, but that's not that important. It's nice to have, but at the end of the day, BattleBit is killing it and they don't have the best graphics on the market, right? Because they made a enjoyable experience over graphics being the primary sell point. In fact, sometimes graphics are going to gatekeep your game. If you make the graphics so demanding on PCs or consoles that previous iterations of graphic cards and consoles can't play it, you're locking out part of the market. If your graphics are so intense that you have to throttle down or back off the system and lock it at certain frame rates, you're going to upset people because they want a better experience overall. You can dumb down the graphics a little bit if everything else in the game is fun and enjoyable to do. A lot of people are doing 2D side scrollers and a lot of games that have lower graphic fidelity because it's an enjoyable experience, which is the entire point. Graphics is not the metrics to sell your game on. Pay to win is absolute trash. The amount of money you have coming in off of a game is not always a metric that is going to tell you how enjoyable the game is, because every game is going to have a couple whales, and depending on how generous those whales are depends on how enjoyable the game is for other people. Because in pay to win scenarios, when I talked about microtransactions earlier, I said not all microtransactions are bad, but some definitely are bad. If I pay to win and I unbalance the game against other competitors who don't have time or money to put in the grind and effort to buy the best gear, and I can always stomp them in the lobbies because I have said best gear just because I spent a couple extra dollars, that's a problem. It ruins enjoyability for casual players. It ruins enjoyability for some people who aren't necessarily straight casual players, but don't have the time to grind everything in the game or like to split their time between different games. So you're just destroying the balance of a game, and that's no fun for anyone. Like, yeah, the person winning might have a little bit of fun for a while, but at some point they lose all sense of challenge and then the fun just drifts away, right? And that's another thing about the whole like grinding for gear is like, not all grinding is fun. There's a lot of grinding that's not fun. If you want me to grind, I'll grind, but give me a reason to grind. Make it enjoyable. Make the rewards for grinding balance out with the amount of effort I put in grinding. Don't make me kill 1,000 whatever fairies in the middle of the woods to get 10 gold. And I have to do it because without doing that quest, I can't unlock the quest that gets the better armor 6 quests later. That's just putting artificial steps in a game to force hours in game as a metric that you value, when in reality, if you just focus on the more important things that I'll get into later, the hours will come. Players will flock to a game if it's enjoyable. You don't have to put in artificial grinding there because people will just spend the hours willingly. So the metric of how do we get people to spend more hours on doing a certain task is a bad metric for the industry because it creates a situation where you're developing things that are inherently not fun in order to get us to spend more hours so that you can tell your board that hours spent in the game is way up. That's a problem, and bigger isn't always better. Like, just because a game has miles and miles to run through doesn't mean that it's going to be good, enjoyable content. Dead space is dead space, and that's not enjoyable for anyone. I'm not saying that you need to scale down to like the size of one city, but I am saying that if you're going to put all that area in there, give me a reason to go to that area. Make it enjoyable, make it exciting. Being the biggest map in all games that were recently released is not an achievement unless there's something to do in that area. It's just another missed metric where bigger is better. The best looking graphic is the only thing that matters, and getting people to slog through extra hours of content is the only goal. These are the metrics you're using that just fail to deliver a product. You're building it backwards, but using the wrong things to build off of, and it's a problem. So how do we fix all this? How does the industry come back and say, you know what, we're sorry, but we're going to start pumping out games? What do those games look like, and what are the things that they're going to give us in that make it a better product overall? It's going back to the basics, right? Why were the old GTAs successful? Why was Red Dead and games of that era successful? It starts with building the story first. Build one cohesive, consistent story that you want to tell. Define the experience that you want gamers to have. And from that point, with the story and the experience laid out, build a unified direction for the game. By doing this, you're creating a reason and desire for me to want to stay in the game, because I want to uncover what that experience is, and I want to get to the bottom of what the story is telling. If you build a good story with a good experience and ambiance, everything after that should just fall into place. Once you have that, you have your unified direction for the game. Once you have that direction, you can say what mechanics fit and what mechanics don't. Don't just add mechanics to the game to make it more diverse. Add mechanics to the game that fit that story. Add mechanics that enhance that experience. But don't just add anything and everything under the sun because it feels right or this other game had it. And that's another point. Stop the cookie cutter experiences. Every game coming out. One game comes out, it does well, and I can expect 12 more of that exact same style of game within the next 2 years. It's absolutely insane. Be unique, be original, step outside the box and take some risk. Yeah, it's nice to have Final Fantasy 16, or it's great to experience, hopefully GTA 6. And continuing franchises isn't a problem, and it's on you to make that franchise grow with the audience and develop into something a little bit more than it was before. But that shouldn't be the only source. And copying each other and having 20 fantasy games come out at the same time, or 20 of this game come out at the same time, like, take some risk, develop new stories, give us something that's new and a unique experience to enjoy. I think one of the biggest things that's driving Baldur's Gate 3 and making it do so well is the fact that it was developed in a way that introduced so many people to a new genre of game that they've never experienced before. That draw is so engaging, because if it's a new experience, if I like it initially and I've never experienced anything like it before, is going to suck me in and keep me locked in place for a decent time. So these new unique experiences that I haven't had before, introducing people to new genres of games, is so beneficial, because if your standard player hasn't experienced something like that before, they're going to want to stay in there because it's so new and exciting. New, exciting, shiny things are new and exciting. It's It's the very center of game development that you want people to be excited about your product. And if it's something new, the odds of them being excited about it are way higher. That's kind of a point of that immersion will lead to the hours that you're so desperately looking for. Making the game that has an immersive story and that's engaging in a unique way will make players want to stay in your world, develop that world, and experience everything that world has to offer, which means you can get the hours that you want as a metric without making me do ridiculous side quests for no reason that have nothing to do with the game itself. And that's how you get to where you want to be without focusing on the things that you're focusing on right now. Let the developers build the game. Let the creative side take over completely. Don't use a marketing team to strategize what's the best step to making money and min-max the returns on development cycles. Just let the creative side create and have the marketing team sell it based off of what they make. Don't let the business side of your model run the creative side of the industry. Because if you force early release times, you're going to have bugs and crashes and things not going to work right. If you force seasonal passes in a game that doesn't feel native to season passes, people aren't going to want to partake in it because it feels like a money grab and it feels disingenuous. Don't force the creative side to add certain skins just so you can maximize returns in a store, and don't force them to withhold content that was part of the original story because you think you can splice off a DLC off of the initial development of the game. If something's part of the first original native story, release it with that game and then come up with a DLC that's loosely related or continues the story in a different direction, but have it be a story that you created, a start, a middle, and an end that's a constant story that delivers me at the end of it fulfilled. Because if I'm fulfilled at the end of a story, I'm more likely to buy a DLC that will give me another experience where I start, middle, and end and leave fulfilled. So don't cut off the middle of a story in order to sell it as a DLC. And I don't think that's that hard. And I don't think anything that I've said is unreasonable. You just have to focus on the actual creative development of the game and give me something new, unique, and exciting. And all of a sudden, I will meet all the metrics that you're looking for to continue to grow your business and run your company without you even having to focus on those things. There's examples of games that are coming out that are good every single year. Games aren't completely dead. And there are games that are following in that kind of development cycle. Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, Remnant 2. These things exist out there and people are doing it and people are enjoying it. Now, not every game's going to be a 10 out of 10, and I understand that. But if you start focusing on the things that develop a solid game instead of something that you think you can min-max to get money to return on, all of a sudden the whole thing flips around and you start getting all the metrics and money that you want based off of just following the simple steps of building a game that was established so long ago as a basic standard to the industry of what the focuses are. This can all be turned around. And again, I don't think the gaming industry is completely dead, and I don't think it's going dead. I think there's a lot of games out there that are still coming out that are good, but there's a lot of games that have been missing, and there's been more games that miss or fail to deliver in certain aspects recently, because I think you're following this cookie cutter, following trends, putting too much emphasis on graphics, releasing too early. You're following all these things that make gamers upset and want to rip apart your game. At the end of the day, I would rather see a game get nitpicked like Starfield, where they're saying, well, this little small detail is wrong, or it's a little muddy in this area graphically, but no one's coming out and saying the game crashes 24/7. Like, I don't want another Cyberpunk. I would love more games like Baldur's Gate 3 that take risk and try to introduce people to a new genre And I think this is easy to deliver on, and it's always a tightrope, and I don't know how hard it is to make a game. But if you focus on the right things, I think the right people will come and the game will be a success. I don't know, guys. You let me know in the comments. What do you think the biggest thing the industry is getting wrong is? Was I right? Was I wrong? What do you think gamers need to look for in the future? And how do we fix where gaming sits as a whole? Let me know down in the comments. Let's talk about it.
Like and subscribe. Do this stuff. You want all that? All of that. Hey there, it's Skeg Broggy. Thanks for watching the video. And if you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and follow me here on Twitch for more awesome content. Link is in the description.